Liking him or not, Jordan Peterson is today one of the most influential thinkers of our time. He gives lectures all around the world, and almost every time they are always sold out. He says even how he makes almost hundreds of thousands of dollars for each lecture he gives as well. And at the same time, one of the biggest criticisms people tend to take on Peterson is actually due to the complexity of some of the things he says. But after listening for hundreds of hours, even thousands or so, I decided to make a video to explain or to understand Jordan Peterson in an easier way. And at the end of this video, you will realize how all of his different books, all of his lectures, and all of the different theories and topics he talks about, all of them are saying about one single idea, literally. Chapter 1. Archetypes. For me, I believe that Maps of Meaning is Peterson's magnum opus, although it is not as easy to read as some other books of his. Maps of Meaning is very dense, and Peterson was obviously very inspired by Carl Jung's style of writing, especially his ideas as well. Since many of the drawings available on Psychology and Alchemy, Carl Jung's book, for example, are present in Maps of Meaning as well. But while Carl Jung just tried to state the fact that there are patterns in many symbols and myths of the past, here Peterson tries to evolve the works of Jung by categorizing and saying what these patterns are. So drawing on Carl Jung, Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, and neuroscience even, this book examines how myths and stories have historically helped people navigate the world. And also how these myths are actually knowledge that are embedded even in our brains. They are archetypes that are repeating like and then or not. But what are these archetypes? And how can Peterson state that they are repeating in our lives or even embedded in our brains? Well, imagine this scientific method where you have a bunch of subjects and you want to determine something about them. The truth or the facts. So you go to them, you make an experiment or apply a test, and then you repeat it over and over, even in different situations of the experiment. Then you derive that which is common among not only all of the subjects, but also from all of these experiment results. And if the results keep appearing even after you test and retest, then you can say that you got something close to a truth or a fact. Truth will be, in this case, that which remains, and that no matter the time or the way you look at it or test it, it stays the same, like gravity. It is similar to the Plato's idea of ideas, but in reverse. Imagine that this is a cat, this is a cat, or even these are also cats. Now, even though all of them are cats, they are different at the same time, because even in our minds, they share something in common, which is the idea of a cat. For Jung, this could be in a sense called an archetype, an image that doesn't care about how much the external or physical reality changes. It stays the same. But at the same time, this archetype, similar to Plato's idea, will never be as perfect in the physical world as it is in our heads or in the world of ideas. It is similar to the differences between Dharma and Karma in Hinduism. While Dharma is a line that surpasses the reality of things, the Karma would be this other line on top of it made by humans, but it still follows this other line of Dharma. It's the same differences between the concepts of essence, which transcends, and existence, which is finite. Therefore, just like Dharma, the idea or the essence, the archetype are also transcendent. And the way to explore what an archetype is just looking at the patterns of the world through symbols, through myths, through scientific experiments even. Jung was a very fan of those actually. So it doesn't matter how much time passes, this form, this idea, this essence, this archetype stays the same, even though its appearance, its image or existence changes accordingly to society and its time. It is like the concepts of being a man or a woman. This is essential. It is a transcendent. It is an archetype. But the way men and women express themselves changes according to its time. Therefore, its existence or appearance is not transcendent. Imagine the fact that for 500 million years of evolution, there are cells that seek nutrients and go back to another they are affiliative of. Then, millions of years later, you have the same thing happening to not only gametes, but also to men going to wars and coming back to their wives. And some more 100 years later, you have men going to work and coming back to their family. It is not saying about the functionality of it or not, but to state that there is the tendency for these things to happen. They are transcendent, they are essential, they are archetypical. And this is the groundings to understand not only maps of meaning, but also Jordan Peterson. Because once we have these behaviors repeating, we can actually derive from them stories as well. The examples that Peterson gives are always of the formation of societies. First, there is nothing, or chaos. Then, there is everything, or order. And this is an idea that repeats itself from many different cultures in very different times as well. And using these, Peterson realized that the archetypes of these stories, and therefore the stories of human beings, was one of chaos and order. As he says, they are parts of the structure of reality. Sometimes we are in paradise, a representation of order. Then a serpent appears, and we are banished to work on earth, a representation of chaos. Then we start building cities, and civilization starts thriving again, which is order. But then an apocalypse starts, which is chaos. And this cycle repeats not only for the grand schemes of life, but also in our own personal lives and subjective lives as well. We are constantly going from a period of order and success, health and stability, to a place of chaos with diseases, uncertainties, and anxiety. Based on these ideas, Peterson made 2 other books to call on this interpolarity of life. Although originally he wanted to make a single book with them, the first 12 Rules for Life, an antidote for chaos, and 12 more rules beyond order. But in both of these books, to make a very poor summary of them, Peterson says that life has a natural tendency to delve into chaos, and it is in our personal responsibility to take these things and to transform them into order. This is the hero myth, another pattern that repeats throughout time. Most of the leaders, the warriors, the best knights, even the most successful people today are those who do just that. So, what would happen if you did the same? Peterson doesn't say that things will turn out well for you just because you take on responsibility of transforming chaos into order. But he says that if you don't do it, due to the natural transformation or entropy of things, they can become chaotic. At the same time, he says that things can also become too orderly. This is when authoritarianism takes place. But although Peterson states about the occurrences of both of these extremes of chaos and order, he definitely focuses more on the transformation of chaotic state to an orderly one, rather than the opposite. Why? Well, maybe this is what he sees more in his life. Who knows? Due to this fame, he lives in constant pressure. He was hospitalized during the writing of this 3rd book, Beyond Order, and if you read the book, you can actually see the impact his experience had in his own life. And with this, we actually can go to the 3rd part of this Petersonian way of thinking, which is Chapter 3, Maps of Meaning, or How Your Life is a Story. If chaos and order are repeating through time, just stating that they are essential for life may not be as much of use for the existential parts of our lives. That is, just stating that this is transcendence doesn't actually tell us what we should do with the immanence of our lives. With this, he transforms what is an horizontal scheme of 2 points, chaos and order, to a vertical scheme of 4. And with these, he creates what he calls the map of meaning. At the bottom, we have point A, which represents where you are in life right now. It could be chaos if your life isn't what you wanted, or it could be too much order if you are in a comfort zone and nothing seems to be advancing to where you would enjoy. At the top, you have point B, which would be your goals and dreams, whether a representation of order or the ideal life you want, or of chaos even, if you're going to travel or to have a new career and so on, who knows. With these, we have at the left tools that will help you to achieve these goals, and on the right there are obstacles that will try to deceive you from the good path. Peterson correlates these with the way that human brain works on itself. Because while the left brain is more verbal, analytical, and orderly, the right brain will be more creative, artistic, and chaotic in this sense. But in addition to this, I would myself add to this model of Peterson another model which is called the triune brain. While this triune brain divides the brain in three parts, here we are going to only use the lower and the superior parts to explain. Because while the lower parts of the brain are more instinctive and impulsive in a sense, the superior parts are more inhibitory of our behaviors. While the inferior parts are related to your surroundings, the superior parts are related to the more internal and idealistic parts. The inferior is about sensation and emotions. The superior is about intuition and rationality. Therefore, the same differences of chaos and order inbuilt in our brains. Even the differences that the inferior parts are the point A, while the superior parts are programming the point B. While the left brain is programming the tools that you have to use in life, the left ones are telling you to explore and to the things that you should be doing differently. With this, if you follow the tools that are in your disposal, you will have the positive emotions that will tell you that you are going to a better place, that is the point B. But if you encounter only obstacles, then you create anxiety and negative emotions that will tell you to go back from where you came from and restart or rethink your approach. At the same time, you can, in a sense, expand this model to a fourth dimension, that is, to put maps of meaning inside of maps of meaning. So when you achieve your goal and you go to the point B, you don't get to Valhalla, the paradise, or the eternal satisfaction of life. What you actually gain is another map. Just like Maslow's pyramid, in which when you get to all of your necessities attended, and the physical, the social, and the esteem parts of life, you actually get a new pyramid instead. And the same goes for maps of meaning. A new map emerges from the old one you've actualized. This idea also comes from the influence that the psychologist Jean Piaget had in Peterson. Being a constructivist, Piaget had the idea that we integrate new knowledge on the basis of old knowledge we had. For example, before you can run, you have to learn how to walk. And before that, you have to learn how to crawl. And before that, you have to learn how to just balance yourself with the weight of your head in proportion to your body. Therefore, new knowledge is always being constructed based upon these previous learnings. The same goes not only for the physical abilities, but also for the cognitive abilities as well. And therefore, with life. One of the reasons why you have the way of thinking that you have today is due to everything that you have thought or experienced before. Your current self is becoming on the top of a previous one. And this is what leads us to the next topic to understand Jordan Peterson ideas. Chapter 4, We Who Wrestle With God. Now, everything I've just said up until now has been just an introduction to what seems to be the true summary of all of Peterson's ideas, which is his idea of God. At the same time, many people seem to be confused when Peterson says that he is a Christian who tends to see God as real, but altogether presents and even talks about God as an idea or a symbol. And the reason for this is that Peterson is actually putting God as the point B of maps of meaning. After all, what would be better to put in the pinnacle of your pyramid of hierarchy if not the Creator itself? So it makes sense that some people seem to be confused when he treats God as if he was just a thought or a concept. But the key to resolving this apparent contradiction lies in phenomenology, which Peterson often references.
I've been thinking about how to figure out what's real for a long time. And because I'm an existentialist, I'm operating under the presupposition that you can tell what people believe by watching what they how they act. I don't care what they say. I don't care what their statements are about their view of reality. Because the relationship between that and their actual actions is certainly not perfect, and sometimes doesn't even exist.
Phenomenology is often combined, especially in psychology, with existentialism. It describes phenomenology as a method of orienting oneself towards reality by focusing on what exists outside of a personal perception. More specifically, Peterson describes phenomenology as a way of conducting yourself, basing your perceptions only on that which is outside. What does this mean? That if you treat God only as a concept in your head, that God wouldn't be real, because he would be only in your head. So instead of putting God only as a concept, you should treat God as an experience. That is, not only putting God in the top of the pyramid as an idea, but rather living and acting as a reality, that God is real. And with this, you validate not only God as a fact, rather than just an idea, but also you validate everything that is below God in this metaphysical map, which is expressed in reality. So for Jordan Peterson, he does say that the top of the hierarchy is a concept or a symbol. But just because different people have different maps of meaning, and can therefore treat that which is in the top of the pyramids as different, or in the sense, value different things to be on the top of that. But here's the trick. Peterson also says that for a value system, or in this case a pyramid, a hierarchy or a map a person has, to really conceive what reality is, the values she is valuing, that is, in the tools and the obstacles, or the point B, should not only come from her, but rather as an amalgamation, a sum, or just a pact with other people. That is, he doesn't believe that people can, or at least should, create their own values. We should, as a society, decide and come into a congregation that defines what is valuable. This is one of Peterson's biggest arguments against Nietzsche or even the postmodernists, who sometimes believe that people should create their own values, which is Nietzsche's idea, or that all values are subjective and prone to interpretation, the postmodern idea. Peterson sees values as both hereditary and archetypical. Therefore, we are bound to biology to value what we value, just like chaos and order are constant patterns in life. So are our values. So even though people can still value different things, like I prefer psychology or you preferring literature or philosophy, at the top of everything there would be a common value, which is living in society, or for Peterson, is God, or serving God. So even though we have personal maps, the society, when it comes together, has its own map as well. If that didn't happen, we would not have a society at all. And this is why you should not put yourself at the top of your map. You should always put something bigger. He says how many activists, psychopaths, and narcissists, for example, can put themselves in the top of that. Therefore, everything they do is related to and only to them. It is the Freudian or even the Buddhist concept of ego, we can say. And the problem with this comes to the idea of constructivism that we just said before. Because if you put yourself as the top of the pyramid, you actually lack that which is outside of the pyramid. You lack the capacity to grow the meaning of your life. Because in the sense, you're always referencing yourself as you are in the present moment. And you never conceptualize everything that can become or everything that is outside of your personal life. To back up these arguments, he references many scientific papers that tend to say how there is no difference between self-obsession or thinking only about yourself and negative emotions or emotional states such as depression, anxiety, and stress. Thinking about yourself and only about yourself becomes an obstacle to the goals you have in life. Or in Peterson's own words, it becomes hell. But if you put the biggest thing you can possibly imagine in the top of the hierarchy, you expand not only this hierarchy or map you have, but also everything that it can become. And with these, we come to the last conjecture of Jordan Peterson's ideas, which is his ideas of the future and the social, which for him are the same thing. Chapter 5, the future, the social, and the sacrifice. Now, although Peterson doesn't make or say directly this, if you use maps of meaning and infer that the social values or positive and negative emotions are subordinated to the goal or point B, then we could say that if you look at the best possible point B, you're also looking at the best possible values. And if the values are social and the point B is the future, looking at the future would be the same as caring for others. As he himself says, people need to integrate their desires in the present, or the point A, with the other people, the social values, through time, the point B. This way, you not only value that which is, but also that which can become, the main focus of his theory. Transforming chaos into order, and sometimes order into chaos when it is required. And that's when another important of his ideas, the idea of sacrifice, comes in hand. Because to sacrifice that which you are right now in the present, to sacrifice your ego as we said, and therefore to care for other people, you are with all of this looking forward to the future. The idea of sacrificing your present in order to the future is also what he calls responsibility. Because if you are looking to other people and not only yourself, you're also looking to something that is in the future. And it is at the same time outside of yourself. So it is outside this comfort zone, the zone of order that you have, and you go to the complete chaos, to the unknown, as Peterson says. Because you know who you are in the present moment, but you don't know what is outside of yourself. Therefore, sacrificing this ego or the things that you will do only for yourself and caring for other people, you are not only in the sense looking forward to chaos and to the capacity to transform it into order, but you are also looking into the unknown and with these to the future. To summarize, looking at the point B is looking at everything and valuing everything that is below it as well. And if God is in your point B, therefore everything below is not only subordinated to God, but also is validated as the best possible way to live your life, because you have put the best possible thing at the top of your hierarchy or map. And with these, we come to one of the things that Peterson says to present his own ideas in his personality in its transformation class, in which he says that a philosopher is always trying to ask and respond a question. And the question that Peterson is both asking and responding with this is, how is the best possible way to conduct yourself in your life and in the world, therefore? And before you, John Foley guy, try to discredit this, remember that this is not only trying to use a model of philosophy or logic to apply and conduct its premises, but rather a new model of itself. Just like phenomenology tries to distance itself from the old concepts of philosophy, Peterson is doing the same here, even though his method of analysis is based on Jung's analytical psychology. But here's an interesting thing, because Jung himself also stated that he was a phenomenologist. In parallel to this, Peterson tends to talk a lot about responsibility. And sometimes for some people it can be seen as a loose part of his theory. But when he says things like that people need to take the most amount of responsibilities, and that responsibility sometimes is related to taking things forward, I would suggest that what Peterson calls responsibility is also what he says about God, and even about the point B in this model. More specifically, the transformation and the constant transformation of this point B to a point A, point B, and the maps of meaning, therefore. Because once responsibility is related to that which he calls sacrifice and the meaning of life, it would make perfect sense to say that that which is on the top of your map is the meaning of your life. Therefore, the name Maps of meaning. And if meaning, as we have seen, is not only related to what Peterson calls God, but also anything that a person can value subjectively, and his values are related to the future, responsibility, God, the future, meaning, sacrifice, at the highest aim you can conceive in your life, all of these are all one of the same. It's all about the point B you have in your life. It's all about turning the chaotic cosmos of the universe into logos, or order, in your life. If you want to understand better Peterson's ideas from himself, I would suggest his videos on vision and destiny, available on the Daily Wire Plus. And no, this is not an advertisement, because it is only that I believe that it is the best way and most simplified explanation that you can have to understand the psychological theory of his by himself. But if you really want to understand it, here's a model that I made myself. First, you put maps of meaning as the point A of his psychology. Once it grounds everything else to his way of thinking, to the way he acts and speaks in the world. Then you put both of the 12 Rules for Life books as the values, once these are all about how to better act within a social world. And as we have seen, just like morality is determined by the social world, so do values. In this case, the positive and negative values or emotions. Positive emotions tells us that we are going in a good direction in the world related to our goal, while negative emotions tells us the opposite. And finally, we put we who wrestle with God at the point B, because just like everything is subordinated to God, all of his ideas are also subordinated to this one. It's all about knowing what you want in life, all about envisioning your future, taking responsibility, making the sacrifices, taking your goals into account of who you are. At the same time, you take other people into consideration as well. So, why is this important? Well, if you are depressed, aimless, and without any meaning in life, this can be a very good way for you to take control and go do something, instead of sitting in your room crying and thinking how horrible your life is. Even though many intellectuals criticize Peterson's ideas through the lenses of philosophy, his main goal is actually to be a psychologist, as it is his main focus of studies. You never see him rumbling about Aristotle, Plato, Hegel, and so on. Even though he does talk about some philosophers like Nietzsche, mostly his theories are based on the groundings of psychoanalysis, analytical psychology, and existential phenomenology, psychotherapy, not philosophy. Although related, these are two different things. And if you want to know more about these approaches to therapy, you can actually book a session with me, as I spent years in university just to learn how to practice in these approaches. Although I'm not Jordan Peterson, I am a bachelor graduate in psychology in Brazil, and here we spent 5 years not only learning about the theories, but also psychological practices as well, which I had some years of experience on. Mostly psychoanalysis and existential therapy. So if you are interested in those, you can click the link in the description and know more about it. I will very gladly have you as a patient or a client. And for now, I can say for you is to sit straight, your shoulders back, and clean your room. And see you next time.